I just here. Is it recording now? Yeah, I can do the. Oh, hey, didn't see you there.
Travis, welcome back. Good to see you. You are clearly not in Colorado right now. From your background, it looks like you are. I'm acting like I don't know where you are. I know where you are. You're in Vegas.
I'm in Las Vegas.
Thanks for joining us from so far away, for making time while you're out there handling some other business, still to connect with us and answer some important questions. And today we have a very important question, a question that businesses or companies who may be dealing with an IT service provider, an MSP that's not providing the service that they need, they may be facing that question. And we want to get the simplified answer to this question. How difficult is it to switch MSPs? Is it more difficult to learn Mandarin or to switch your MSP?
Well, I've never tried to learn Mandarin, which I imagine is pretty difficult. So probably not quite that hard. But before I answer that question, I want to explain to anybody who's watching what an MSP is. We did cover this in a previous episode, but MSP means Managed Services Provider, or someone who delivers outsourced IT services to your business. And the answer is, how hard is it? Well, if they're a terrible MSP, then it's going to be probably a difficult transition. But if you're moving to a good MSP, they're going to do everything in their power to make that transition as smooth as possible. So there's a reason you're leaving them in the first place, right? So is it likely that they're going to make that move easy on you? Unfortunately, they're probably not, because they're probably not very well organized. But if you're moving over to a good MSP, they're going to be able to compensate for some of that, take the reins, and help make that transition smooth.
So that can put a company at or a business in a conundrum. Then you want to switch MSPs because your MSP isn't doing what you want. It's not providing the service that you want or that you need. But now it's more difficult for you because it's not a great MSP. So
right.
So what are some of the things? What are some of the steps in that process that may be simplified if you're with a good MSP?
Yeah, I'd say one of the things you want to make sure of is check with your provider with regards to their documentation. If you're thinking about making a change and you're not sure how to go about starting that process, talk to them about their documentation. Ask them, hey, can you produce a network map for me? Can you give me some information? I'm looking for administrative credentials. I want to make sure we've got a backup copy of these things somewhere. Check and see if you're able to get that information. If you're not able to get that information quickly, it's because they don't have it. And that means that when the new provider comes in, or if you're just insourcing or whatever change you're making, when you're ready to make that change, they're not going to have that information available to hand over to you. So early in the process, let's say you've decided you want to make a switch, you're dissatisfied with your current vendor, and you're starting to look around at other vendors, start the process with them then of making sure you've got the appropriate documentation in place. Now, even before, let's say you are satisfied with your MSP, these are good questions to ask throughout your relationship periodically, just to check on things. Great managed service providers are going to have tremendous amounts of documentation and data, and they're going to be able to turn that over to you quickly. That's a sign of a good managed service provider. And if for some reason they don't have some documentation on something, they're going to get it quickly. So throughout your relationship, I think this is just a really important thing to check on from time to time, to look at. But that's going to be the key to moving over. The other thing I'm going to say is that they should have a really good project management process. A good MSP is going to have a really good project team. They're going to have templates that are set up to help them onboard customers. And the templates they use to offboard their customers are going to be basically the same templates, just in reverse, right? If the template to onboard you says to add certain services, then the offboarding is going to say remove those services. So they should be really well organized on both their onboarding and their offboarding process.
Okay. So the template that you're talking about, Travis, the process of onboarding and offboarding clients, is that something that should be visible to the customer? Is that something that the customer should go over from time to time, or at some time during the process if they're thinking of switching MSPs?
It depends on your tools that you're using in your MSP. In our case, we're using ConnectWise. And so our process for bringing a client on, new clients, or having clients exit is visible through our customer portal. So you'll be able to log in, see your project template, see where you're at in that project and the stream of time. Again, this is another sign of a well-organized managed service provider. They should have a customer-facing portal where you can check in on projects and see where you're at in the stream of that project. So yeah, a good MSP, one that's easy to stay with or to change from, is going to have well-defined process that's visible to its clients.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the process that a company might expect. In your opinion, if a company is with an MSP that is not providing great service, then obviously the best idea, the best thing for them to do is switch MSPs, even though it may be a difficult process. You know, if you break a bone, it may not be fun to set that bone, but you need to get that done. So can you kind of work us through what a company might expect? What are some of the steps or what the timeline could be in making that switch?
Yeah, you're going to want to make sure you've got the two parties communicating with one another. And they're going to want to set a definitive date where the new company is going to take over service and the losing provider is going to hand all the keys to the kingdom over to that new provider. And in fact, you may actually do a knowledge transfer before the cutover date, but you do want a specific time where the new provider begins to support your company and the old provider stops supporting your company. There's also going to be a need to remove the old tools, so your old antivirus, possibly endpoint detection remediation software, your remote monitoring and management tools, all these things that have been installed in your environment. You're going to want to have a good coordinated effort where the old tools are extracted and the new tools are then implemented in that environment. And there should be project managers on both sides working together to facilitate this change. So that's what you should expect. It should be clear expectations, and everybody should be professional about this. We don't like to lose customers. We don't lose them very often, but we have, on occasion, had to give up a client to another managed services provider. And whenever we do that, we do our best to make sure that our client, who is leaving for whatever reason, has a good experience even on the transition. We want to be coordinated. We want to be professional. We want to make sure that we do our best to make this go smoothly. Because again, even though that relationship has ended for whatever reason, we still want to be professional. And that's what you deserve as a client, is somebody who's always going to be professional, do their best job, be above board on everything, and make this as smooth as possible for you.
So what is the timeline on something like that look like? How long could that process potentially take? What should businesses expect?
Yeah, you're going to need a few weeks to coordinate this, sometimes as much as a month. It really just depends on the other provider and what they're going to need on their end. Generally speaking, a 30-day window to move from your old provider to your new provider is pretty standard, but it really does depend on how organized and coordinated both companies are. In our case, if we have to turn on a dime and do something in a few weeks, we can do that. Obviously, we prefer to have more time available to bring on clients and to remove clients. So I would say, generally speaking, budgeting about 30 days to make this change is reasonable.
It's good for a business to know so that they can have solid expectations if they have to go through that process of offboarding with one company and onboarding with another. And hopefully that's not something that a business has to do a lot. Finding a great IT provider and sticking with them is definitely the way to go. But if they do have to go through that process, then hopefully the information in this video will help. We're going to do our 30-second breakdown. And I'm really excited about it because then I can, take this old headset off that I'm wearing because I could not find my headset. But the techs, shout out to the techs at Simpleworks. They let me borrow this headset for today. as one of the spares. But let's get to this 30 seconds or less. Travis, let's make IT simple. How difficult is it to switch MSPs? Is it more difficult to switch MSPs or learn Mandarin Chinese?
Again, it's very easy to leave a good MSP, the kind you don't want to leave. It can be very difficult to leave a bad MSP because they're just not organized. They're just not coordinated. Probably a lot of the reasons you want to leave them in the first place is why it's going to be a difficult transition. But with a good MSP that you're going over to, they can make it easy on you and they can make it painless for you.
So bad MSP, Mandarin. Good MSP, Pig Latin.
There you go. How would I say yes in Pig Latin? S-yay. S-yay.